How can he rule the Seven Kingdoms when he cannot rule his brother? The Lords of Westeros on King Aenys' relationship with his brother Maegor, Fire and Blood, the Sons of the Dragon. The start of the reign of King Aenys Targaryen had been turbulent to say the least. He had well and truly been tested, with no true consensus of his ability as king. Yet, all the rebellions across the realm had been put down, but very much thanks to the actions of others, such as the now late Orys Baratheon, Dowager Queen Visenya, and the king's younger brother, Prince Maegor, whom personally ended the rebellion in the Vale single-handedly. Many now saw Aenys as weak and indecisive, not the qualities you want in your king. One good thing did come of this. The bond between King Aenys and Prince Maegor, the Sons of the Dragon, was deeper than ever, with Aenys naming his brother his Hand of the King. But sadly for the realm and the brothers, the enmity between the dragon's sons did not long endure. In truth, conflict between them was inevitable, as the two brothers had very different natures. King Aenys loved his wife, his children, his people, and only wished to be loved in turn. Sword and lance had lost whatever appeal they ever had for him. Instead, the king dabbled in alchemy, astronomy, astrology, delighted in music and dance, wore the finest silks and velvets, and enjoyed the company of maesters and septons and playwrights. His brother, Maegor, was taller, broader, and fearsomely strong. He had no patience for any of that, but lived for war, tourneys and battles. He was rightly regarded as one of the finest knights and warriors in the Seven Kingdoms, though his savagery in the field and harshness towards defeated foes was often shadily remarked upon as well, but never in Maegor's presence. King Aenys always sought to please when faced with difficulties. He would answer with soft words, whereas Maegor replied was ever steel and fire, as he had clearly demonstrated in the Vale, hanging all the rebels. Grand Maester Garwin once wrote that Aenys trusted everyone and that Maegor trusted no one, except from perhaps his mother, the Dowager Queen Visenya Targaryen. The king was easily influenced, Garwin also observed, swaying this way and that like a reed in the winds, like as not to heed whichever counsellor last had his attention. Brother, you need never kneel to me again. We shall rule this realm together, you and I. You are more fit to bear this blade than me. Wield it in my service, and I shall be content. Aenys Targaryen, to his brother Maegor, Fire and Blood, the Sons of the Dragon. Prince Maegor Targaryen, on the other hand, was rigid and as an iron rod, unyielding, unbending, and in many ways much more like his late father, King Aegon. A fact that Aenys' detractors were all too keen to point out. Despite such differences, the Sons of the Dragon continued to rule together amicably for the better part of 2 years. But in 39 AC, Queen Alys of Valyrian gave the king yet another heir, a girl she named Vaela, who sadly died in the cradle only a few days after birth. Perhaps it was this continued proof of the queen's fertility that drove Prince Maegor to finally do what he did. Whatever the reason, the prince shocked the realm and the king both when he suddenly announced that Lady Cerys Hightower, his wife, was barren, and that he had therefore taken a new, younger second wife in Alys Harroway, the daughter of the new lords of Harrenhal. The wedding was performed on Dragonstone very much in secret, under the watchful eyes of Dowager Queen Visenya. As the Castle Septon refused to officiate, given Maegor already had a legal wife, Maegor and his new bride were joined in a traditional Valyrian rite, wed by blood and fire, the singers have come to say. The marriage took place without the leave, knowledge or presence of King Aenys, as Visenya and Maegor both knew Aenys would never allow the second marriage, and would eventually buckle under the pressures of the High Septon of the Faith and his counsellors. When the marriage became known, the two brothers quarrelled bitterly, nor was his grace alone in his wrath, as very much predicted. In fact, many were outraged at this affront. Manfred Hightower, father of Lady Cerys, made a protest to the king, demanding Lady Alys Harroway be put aside immediately, and in the Starry Sept at Oldtown, the High Septon of the Faith went even further, denouncing Maegor's marriage as nothing but a sin and fornication, calling the prince's new bride the whore of Harroway. No true son or daughter of the Seven would ever bow to such, he thundered. But Prince Maegor, a hard man, and with the support of his mother, the last of the three heads of the dragon, remained steadfastly defiant. His father had taken both of his sisters to wife, and the faith had allowed it, he pointed out. The strictures of the faith might rule lesser men, but not the blood of the dragon. No words of King Aenys could heal the wounds his brother's words thus opened, and many pious lords throughout the Seven Kingdoms condemned the marriage, and began to speak openly of Maegor's whore. The issue was, Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives were an exception, one that the faith and many within Westeros as a whole allowed, given the extraordinary and unprecedented event that the conquest was. Aenys was not Aegon, and while Maegor was much more like his father, he too was not Aegon. Vexed and angry, Aenys gave his brother an ultimatum: put Alys Harroway aside and return to Lady Cerys, or suffer 5 years of exile. Most at court and many of the king's advisors believed Maegor would relent, and this troublesome issue would be forgotten. But to the shock of many at court, Prince Maegor chose exile. He would indeed stand his ground. With the heart of a warrior, he was not one to retreat, surrender, or back down. Thus in 40 AC, he departed King's Landing for Pentos, crossed the Narrow Sea, taking his new wife Lady Alys, Balerion his dragon, and the Sword of King's Blackfyre with him. There are some versions of this tale that suggest that King Aenys requested that his brother return Blackfyre to him, to which Prince Maegor replied, "Your grace is welcome to try and take her from me." Lady Cerys was left abandoned in King's Landing, greatly ashamed by the events. House Hightower was outraged, but the faith was momentarily placated. Little did King Aenys know this very issue of a similar nature would plague his reign and send his kingdom into chaos. Septon Mermerson's prayers worked miracles, but as hand, he soon had the whole realm praying for his death. Maester Pylos, Davos Seaworth, A Storm of Swords Chapter 54, Davos 5. Filling his brother's place as Hand of the King would prove to be yet another challenge King Aenys procrastinated, as those at court fawned around him, hoping for an elevation in their position. In the end, the king turned to a man called Septon Mermerson. Very little is known about him or his background, but what we do know is he was a pious cleric, said to be able to heal the sick by the laying of his hands. He had become quite renowned across the growing city of King's Landing for his skills. A desperate Aenys had him lay his hands on Lady Cerys Hightower's belly every night, in the hopes that his brother might repent his folly if his lawful wife could be made fertile. But Cerys soon grew weary of the nightly ritual, and departed King's Landing for Oldtown, where she rejoined her father in the Hightower, with the Septon's abilities seemingly failing when it came to this matter. No doubt His Grace the King had hoped the choice would appease the faith and the High Septon, given Mermerson was of course one of their very own. If this was his plan, the king was sorely mistaken. Septon Mermerson could no more heal the realm than he could make Cerys Hightower with Maegor's child. The High Septon would continue to thunder, and all those across the realm, lords in their halls and small folk alike, spoke of King Aenys' weakness. How can he rule the Seven Kingdoms when he cannot rule his brother? With the whispers slowly getting louder.